What's up, everyone? Coach Megan here, and welcome to this episode of the Powerhouse Podcast. Happy summer, by the way. This episode, I'm going to be talking about commitment, and no better time to talk about commitment than in between pageant seasons. First and foremost, what do I mean by the word commitment? Well, the Webster's definition is the state or quality of being dedicated to a cause, activity, an engagement or obligation that restricts freedom of action. I'm actually going to come back to that. And if you actually talk about it in terms of taking it further, in terms of the spiritual nature of things, commitment is one step below what I would call even a covenant, which a covenant is as intense as there is a shedding of blood when it comes to that. We won't get into all that, or I'll get real spiritual real quick. But other synonyms for commitment is dedication, devotion, allegiance, loyalty, faithfulness, fidelity, a vow, a promise, a pledge, an oath, a covenant, a contract, a pact, a responsibility, an obligation, duty, tie, charge, liability, and burden. So what I find very interesting about the second definition, an engagement or obligation that restricts freedom of action. I think most of you, when you heard this, probably thought of this as a negative thing, but I want to encourage you that that's actually a really positive thing. I was talking with one of my clients earlier today. A lot of my clients, including previously myself, deal with food issues when it comes to competing for their pageant. And understandably, because you have to fit into certain clothing, you have to look a certain way, you have to wear certain brands and designers, and we are constantly in front of a camera and we have to post on social media, right? And there are all these things. And then we compete in swimsuit fitness, right? We have people quite literally giving us a score for our bodies, and that can wreak havoc on us mentally, emotionally, spiritually. But I was talking with one of my clients earlier about an issue where she has a habit, I won't even say problem, but just a habit of snacking late at night. Can I get an amen? That was me. Still part of the snacking late at night club. Honestly, one of the best parts of being pregnant, eating all the time. Just loving life. And baby girl loves some sugar. If you ever need to feel your baby kick, fun fact, just eat sugar and lay down. And she will be having an entire drum concert solo to herself within seconds. It's actually hilarious and slightly, I wouldn't say painful, just uncomfortable, but then also it makes me laugh. So I'm like laughing and uncomfortable at the same time. And I'm like, I can't even be mad because this is just the cutest thing in the whole world. So mini me on her way soon. Anyways, so I was talking to my client about this, and it made me think of this because we were talking about how a strategy to help with binge eating or late night snacking, and no, I'm not a doctor. I'm not giving you medical advice. I'm not addressing your eating disorder. Please seek professional help for that. However, what worked for me was, and what I was talking to my client about, is creating what's called constraints. Constraints are boundaries, barriers, absolute yeses, absolute nos that cause you to restrict certain things and allow flow and ease for other things. And when it comes to a commitment, I think most people just think of putting the gas down and going all in. And one of the things that we rarely talk about is actually the power of the brakes, right? Arguably, brakes on a car are even more important than the gas pedal. Because at the end of the day, I could walk, I could get to a destination on a bike. There are a lot of different ways that I can put the gas pedal down or get from A to B. But how many of y'all know that when crisis comes, we want a brake more than a gas pedal? The brake is super, super, super important to help us avoid danger, right? To help us, to restrict us from crashing into the car next to us. And throughout life, as we are navigating circumstances and as we are committing to a next level of commitment, it is really important that we restrict certain things. We don't want our life to be a free-for-all of everything is okay and nothing is off limits. That could be really, really harmful, right? We can look at this from a morality standpoint of wanting to make sure that we're a good person, right? If everything morally was on the table, nothing would mean anything, right? We'd have no moral code, no moral standard of how we treat one another, respect one another, what we can do, what we can't do. boundaries and restrictions are beautiful. And a lot of times people think that it's just keeping the bad stuff out, but it's also what keeps the good stuff in. So if you're struggling with a commitment right now, I would encourage you to think about what are the, things that you need to allow in for sure and all the good things, but have you relaxed on boundaries that are affecting you? And then you're wondering why you don't feel so hot. You don't feel so great. So many people let people walk all over them and don't have any boundaries. And then they wonder why they feel crappy, or they're physically exhausted, mentally exhausted. Their cup is always empty. They're always pouring into everybody else. And they cannot figure it out. And they'll go to therapy and they'll go to all these places and ask all their friends and I'm like, yo, you just need some boundaries. And how does this relate to your pageant? This relates to your pageant because you have to have so many boundaries. When you're competing for a week, there is so much going on in your head. There's so much going on around you. And then leading up to your pageant, you need to know how to make your yes, yes, and your no, no. And some of y'all are like, well, I'm really good at the yes, yes, because everything's a yes. And we don't want everything to be a no either. But I want you to be confident in your voice and in your choices. And that congruency is going to produce an amazing peace and a peace of mind, peace of heart. And like I said, a congruency where you feel really good about the path moving forward. And otherwise, if you are the one who is infringing on your own boundaries all the time, like you're hurting yourself, right? So boundaries are a good thing. Restriction can be a really good thing. Obviously, we don't want to live legalistically. And here's the other thing. I don't want you to live perfectionistically either, because the only person perfect is Jesus, okay? So I don't mean add restrictions so that you can be hypercritical. I actually mean the opposite, like relax, say no, like take a night off, plan for it. Take a night where you're just like, I'm going to do nothing. I'm going to feel amazing about it. And it's going to be awesome. And you'll be surprised at how just keeping even that promise to do nothing, keeping that promise to yourself rather than saying you're going to do a million things and then not doing anything, the incongruency and the feeling of that anxiety and the lack of peace and disappointment in yourself comes from saying one thing and doing another. So whether you're going to go all in today or whether you're going to go all out today or somewhere in the middle, keep the commitment to yourself. Set a vision for what is inbounds and outbounds and then do it, okay? And when you consistently keep your word to yourself over and over and over, your brain, your self-confidence, everything will start flowing in a direction where your backbone and your belief of yourself, your internal representation, believes that you can do more and more and more and more. And you'll start being able to take action from that higher place and from that next level self. We call it the future self, future present self, actually, or we'll call it 2.0 version of you. And it's really beautiful because your brain doesn't actually know the difference between the information, real or fake, that you send it. Just takes what you send it, which is why it's really important that we control that. So as always, if you guys have not gotten our free pageant course yet, go to powerhousepageantry.com/free course. Go ahead and hop in on that. And if you're ready for us to be your coach in 2025, I have a few spots left before baby girl comes. So make sure that you set up on a discovery call, which you can find that link below. And with that, we'll see you guys next week.